So today I'll be talking on hyperphosphatemia in CKD. Now, if we look at the causes of CKD, we can see a very important cause is reduced glomerular filtration rate, that is acute kidney injury or chronic kidney disease. Now, why is hyperphosphatemia important in CKD? Now, hyperphosphatemia is associated with significant pathophysiology in CKD. This contributes to the high rate of mortality in these patients. And actually, the risk of death in CKD due to cardiovascular events is more than the risk of surviving and needing RRT. The propensity of CKD patients to develop heterotrophic mineralization of soft tissues, including the vasculature, is a very important component of the cardiovascular risk. And hyperphosphatemia has been directly linked with vascular calcification. And it is also an independent cardiovascular risk factor in CKD. Now, there are multiple studies, the ERIC study and the Framingham study, which all show that higher phosphorus is associated with cardiovascular events and mortality. Now, let's have a look at the phosphorus balance. Now, intake of food. This is an American diet, so which sort of includes the intake of phosphorus about 1200 milligram per day. In Indian diets, it's lesser, about 800 milligram per day. And of that, 400 milligram is excreted in the feces and 950 milligram absorbed into the body. And this is in a interchangeable pool. The blood component just comprises less than 1%. So 1% of the phosphorus is free in the circulation. And an important reservoir of the phosphorus is the bone. And there is osteoblastic activity, and there is formation about 300 milligram phosphorus which is deposited in the bone, and about 300 milligram resorption daily, which maintains the balance. And this phosphorus comes into the phosphorus pool. And about 800 milligram of the phosphorus is excreted in the urine. Now, what happens in CKD is this excretion in the urine decreases to, say, 650 milligram per day. And we are restricting phosphate in the diet. So say the intake has decreased from 1200 to 1000. And of this, 300 milligram is excreted in the feces. So still about 750 milligram is absorbed into the interchangeable pool. And in CKD, a change which occurs is resorption from the bone increases and deposit in the reservoir of the bone decreases to about 100 milligram per day. So therefore, the body develops a new reservoir for the phosphorus, and that is the soft tissues, including the blood vessels, where about 200 mg of the phosphorus may get deposited. Now, if you look at the regulation of phosphorus balance in CKD, first of all, we know that in CKD, the vitamin D activation is less, so there is less calcitriol, and this increases the calcium absorption from the gut. The phosphorus absorption remains the same, and the decreased serum calcium stimulates the parathyroid gland to secrete PTH. This increases the reabsorption of calcium and calcitriol synthesis, but decreases phosphorus reabsorption. Also, excretion in the kidney is decreased. So therefore, we get an increase of serum phosphorus. To deal with this is the molecule FGF23. Now, actually, FGF23 release is not increased, but FGF23 itself is excreted in the urine. So therefore, with the ongoing CKD, FGF23 levels increase, and that is the phosphatonin, and it tries to compensate for the decrease in GFR by increasing the phosphorus excretion through the kidneys. Now, I told you there's a new reservoir, and that is the deposit of phosphorus in the blood vessels. This vascular calcification increases the vessel stiffness, and this results in increase of pulse wave velocity, increased pulse pressure, and we know the disastrous effects of coronary calcification, that is decreased coronary perfusion and also left ventricular hypertrophy. This leads to various cardiac disease events like coronary artery disease and heart failure. So therefore, after understanding the background, so phosphorus balance and its alteration in CKD and why it predisposes to cardiovascular disease, we know that why it is important to control phosphorus. And the KDOQI practice guidelines have already laid down that in CKD stage 3 and 4, the phosphorus should be maintained in the normal level, that is between 2.7 and 4.6. And in stage 5 CKD to about 3.5 to 5.5. And you know the intact PTH levels in CKDs 3 and 4 should be 35 to 70 and 70 to 110. However, in CKD stage 5 on dialysis, they should be maintained at a slightly higher level of 150 to 300. Now, KDOQI guideline recommends that the phosphorus intake should be less than 1 gram per day. And it suggests that limiting dietary phosphate intake is important. No exact cutoff is provided in the guidelines. And as phosphorus intake is linked very closely to protein intake, it suggests limiting protein intake to 0.8 gram per kg per day in patients with GFR less than 30 ml per minute. And suggests definitely to avoid high protein intake more than 1.3 gram per kg per day in patients at risk for CKD progression. And consultation of patients complicated by differences in the dietary phosphate content, as I explained, between the Western diets and say the Indian diets, difference in phosphate bioavailability, which I'll deal with in a second, and no clear listing of phosphate additives in the food. Now, this is one of the main reasons for increasing phosphate content of the food. Now, what are the sources of phosphate in the diet? One is natural phosphates, which are contained in raw or unprocessed foods, the phosphates added to foods during food processing, and the phosphates in dietary supplements and medications. The bioavailability of the phosphate from the food depends first of all on the processing of food, because processing of food, I told you, adds phosphate to the food, and of course the protein intake, because higher the protein intake, so more intake of red meat, etc., you know, that increases the phosphate intake. And also the form of phosphate is very important. That phosphate in the form of non-vegetarian diets, that in the meat and fish, you know, that is more bioavailable, that is taken up more by the body than the other forms in vegetarian diets. And therefore, dietary education is one of the pillars of management of phosphate in CKD. Animal and plant-based foods contain the organic form of phosphate. Food additives contain the inorganic phosphate. And we should explain these to the patients. Now, about 40 to 60% of the animal phosphate is absorbed. Like I said, while plant-based phosphates are less absorbed, about 20 to 50%, because they contain phytates, and which is less absorbable. Now, dietary education about the best food choices are very important. And one must stress on homemade foods, as processed foods and addition of additives will only increase the phosphate content of the food. Now, this is a chart which you probably cannot see well, but this just includes the phosphate content of various proteins, and this is available on the net. So you can check what is the phosphate content of various foods, and as we can see that some of the foods like sunflower seeds contain a high phosphate per gram of protein, sort of 53.7, whereas there are other foods like cottage cheese, which has only 11 gram of phosphate per protein. So the percentage of phosphate per gram of protein also varies from food to food, and that is important when we consider dietary education. Now, the KDIGO guidelines in patients with CKD 3A to 5D, including those on dialysis, suggests that the phosphate lowering treatment should be based on progressively or persistently elevated serum phosphate. And in patients, this is the new guideline, and it is reasonable that the choice of phosphate binder takes into account the CKD stage, presence or absence of other components of CKD MBD, concomitant therapies, and the side effect profile. So that's what the KDIGO tells us. Now, what are the phosphate binders which are available for us? So all these agents bind the phosphate which is there in the diet in the gut and prevents its absorption. So firstly, we have the calcium containing phosphorus binders. That's the calcium carbonate and calcium acetate. Next, calcium citrate was a binder, but it's no longer used today because it has been shown to increase absorption of aluminium. And for the same reason, aluminium hydroxide, which was also a potent phosphate binder, is no longer in use now because absorption of aluminium in CKD will cause aluminium toxicity, cause anemia and bone disease. Other phosphate binders are sevelamer, lanthanum, nicotinamide, ferric iron-containing phosphate binders, ferric citrate and sucroferric oxyhydroxide, and a new phosphate binder called tenapanor. I'll just touch on the binders. General principles is that for all phosphate buffers, the lowest dose that is effective should be used. If calcium-containing phosphate buffers are selected, the total dose of elemental calcium should not exceed 2000 milligram per day. And the amount of elemental calcium contained in the phosphate binder should not exceed 1500 milligram per day. So these are the general guidelines. And of course, that the binder should be taken with meals. And that is something we have to dim into the patients. So first, coming to sevelamer, which is one of the most promising phosphate binders. There are two forms available, sevelamer hydrochloride and sevelamer carbonate. These are non-absorbable cationic polymers that bind phosphate through ion exchange. The conventional dosing is 3 times a day with meals. Sevelamer hydrochloride may cause metabolic acidosis, and therefore now the carbonate form is preferred. Now, sevelamer has the advantage that it has some pleiotropic effects. It reduces cholesterol and thereby has action on reducing atherosclerosis. Also has been shown to reduce uric acid and improves endothelial dysfunction. So therefore, it is very beneficial to prevent cardiovascular disease in CKD. Lanthanum is a rare earth metal that is effective in lowering phosphate levels in dialysis and non-dialysis CKD. And compared to the other calcium containing phosphate binders, efficacy is good in suppressing PTH. An additional benefit of lanthanum may be reduced daily tablet burden. And another advantage, it is chewed rather than swallowed whole. Can I have just 2 minutes? There are no significant side effects reported in dialysis patients. Now, calcium containing binders, the calcium carbonate or calcium acetate, which is more efficient. These binders, of course, may lead to extraskeletal calcium phosphate deposition if the product exceeds 50. Now we have the iron containing phosphate binders with sucroferric oxyhydroxide and ferric citrate. This is effective in reducing serum phosphate concentration as the same effect as the other phosphate binders, and it also serves the dual purpose by increasing the serum iron, transferring saturation ferritin, and thereby improving anemia management. The dose is 2 tabs after meals of ferric citrate. Nicotinamide may lower phosphate levels by reducing GI phosphate absorption. A randomized placebo-controlled crossover trial in 33 patients found that niacinamide significantly lower phosphate levels. This was published in CJSON. Tenapanor is a new phosphate binder. It's an inhibitor of intestinal sodium hydrogen exchanger 3, and that was developed to treat irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, but also shown to lower phosphorus by blocking its paracellular transport from the intestinal lumen. In a phase 3 randomized double-blind trial, the safety and efficacy of oral tenapanor was studied in 209 patients. At 8 weeks, tenapanor significantly reduced serum phosphate compared with placebo by the following figures at 3, 10, and 30 milligram twice daily doses. This was a dose-finding study. Adverse effects were limited to a modest increase in stool frequency.
The last 30 seconds. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Arghya, can we summarize?
Yeah, I'll just close with the Indian study. This is the Indian study which gives us an Indian perspective. This is a review article, and that highlights the cost differences, which is very important in India. Here, calcium carbonate is the cheapest, whereas you can see sevelamer, others are more expensive. So we have to, according to the profile of the patient, we may have to choose the phosphate binders. And particularly, we can choose calcium-containing phosphate binder, which is cheaper when the patient has hypocalcemia. Whereas when the patient has hypocalcemia, we can opt for sevelamer and the non-calcium binding phosphate binder. So therefore, the take-home message is hyperphosphatemia is common in CKD, and it may lead to vascular calcification and is an independent cause of cardiovascular mortality, which kills most of the patients on dialysis. Dietary education is the key. Non-calcium containing phosphate binders are preferable, but of course we have to match the cost of the phosphate binders with the profile of the patient. Iron containing phosphate binders are promising as they serve a dual purpose of decreasing phosphate and also helping in anemia management. So that may be a promising thing in future. Thank you.